Hello, I'm Allison Gardy, Director of International Relations at 92nd Street Y, and we're thrilled to Skype in today Shahinaz Ahmed, who's CEO of the Education for Employment Foundation in Egypt. Shahinaz is a 2010 Ford Motor Company International Fellow of 92nd Street Y as well. The Ford Motor Company International Fellowship of 92nd Street Y has built the leadership and management skills of 233 social entrepreneurial nonprofit leaders in 58 emerging countries. For more information, check out www.92y.org/Ford. And now we'll go to Shahinaz in Cairo. Hi, Shahinaz. How are you doing?
Alison.
Great. So tell us how social media have affected change in Egypt.
Okay. Well, I think one of the strongest things about social media is that it gives people a voice without any preference for class or status or employment, sex or religion. And this is something that has been a great opening for Egypt. You can become an influencer by providing valuable content for a significant amount of time and gain followers and have a voice. It's easy, it's instantaneous, it's got great global exposure. And we've seen this increase and grow in Egypt significantly, particularly over the past year. But I think one of the most powerful things about social media is that it's a very powerful mobilizing tool. But real action needs to happen on the ground, and this is something that we are experiencing right now.
Could social media then be used differently to address that gap that you mentioned?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things to consider, especially in a country like Egypt, is to look at the level of internet penetration. So if there isn't huge internet penetration, the likelihood that social media would have a massive impact is less. And one of the examples of this is an initiative that is happening in Egypt right now, which is called Tweet Nadwa, which means Tweet Symposium. And it's young people who are on Twitter who have mobilized to garner a following and to meet bi-monthly to talk politics. But when they meet in real person and they meet in real life. And so social media has mobilized them to action. But the discussion and the discourse and the opinions and the action is created on the ground. I think in Egypt, people are going to vote depending on what's happening on the streets, not on what's happening on Twitter. And social activists are realizing this and realizing that they could fall into the trap of operating in a vacuum and operating in isolation from the population that doesn't have access to social media and who are going to be voters, and therefore their voice is also important.
That's fascinating, a gap between the online activists and the on-the-ground activists. Can you tell me more about how you think that gap might be bridged, and could social media somehow be helpful in bridging it?
I think that social media is very powerful for mobilization. Bringing people together, bringing young people together, and so they can meet. And when they meet, other people who are not on social media find out about their activities and find out about what they're trying to do, and therefore their voice is more. But really, the most significant thing is that there has to be increased penetration of the internet for social media to really have an impact. And I'll go back to an example in Cairo when the revolution was happening early on. People were on Twitter and were on Facebook and were active as bloggers and on social media. But we didn't have access to the internet or telephones for days. And yet people mobilized and they were still able to go out there. And they'd used social media beforehand, but it's that fertile ground of a community spirit that really makes social media powerful in Egypt, because that exists already. And so it's penetration of the internet. It's recognizing that you can mobilize with social media, but you need to really bring the action to the street in order to have a massive impact at this stage of Egypt's development.
So for our online activists here today who would like to use social media to make democracy and freedom happen around the world, what would you recommend that they do while we hope that internet penetration happens as quickly as possible?
I'll go back to the first point that I mentioned. I think that social media allows you to have a voice. There are no distinctions between people, irrespective of what country you're from or what your religion is or what your social status is. And I think connecting with people in Egypt who are doing the work that they're doing through social media is a very powerful tool. It allows for the common human experience on a very fundamental level. And I think that connectivity is very powerful. So you have somebody tweeting in Egypt and an activist in Latin America knows what's happening about them or knows what's going on. There are shared experiences of other countries that are going through what we're going through right now that we can learn from, and other people that are going through things that we've just passed that can also learn from us.
Thank you so much, Shahinaz.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.